Hey guys, in this video I'm going to install and review this Sol-Ark unit. This is 12K version, and this video is going to be divided to multiple parts. In the first part we'll do unpacking and installation of this device. We'll connect grid power to device, we'll install CT sensors on a grid wires. In the next part we'll review this unit outside. We'll see what do we have on both of these sides. Then we'll review what kind of connections we can connect to this unit. Then on the next part we'll go in details through this menu. You will see what options you have. On the next part we will see what information we're getting out of Wi-Fi from this unit. And in the last part of this video I will provide pros and cons, in my opinion, for this unit. If you're interested in video, let's jump into it. Just a quick note, my installation is still in progress and I have few reasons why it's not completed yet. This video is not about organizing wires and the proper wire gauges, is just reviewing this unit itself. So please hold any comments about incorrect wires gauges and not clean installation. Thank you. So in package with the inverter we're getting a pretty detailed manual with all instructions how to connect wires to Sol-Ark unit, how to configure solar panels, what is menu options, and how to connect Wi-Fi module to inverter. Then we have two ferrite toroids for battery cable installation. Then if we unlatch this door, we'll find that inside of this unit we got Wi-Fi module, this is battery temperature sensor, this is cable for parallel communication if we have multiple Sol-Arks installed, and here we have two boxes with CT limiter sensors. Let's take this unit hardware. On the left side of this unit we have Wi-Fi plug, which is reporting all information to the cloud. Then we have PV panels disconnect switch. We have handle to install or detach this unit. Then a sticker with all specification, and we have 3 cooling fans. What is nice about this cooling fans, it looks like it can be replaced from this side, from outside of unit, by detaching this panel and this panel. So it looks like it's just like plug and play, and it's easily replaced cooling fans, which is really nice. In front of this unit we have this door where we can access all wires and circuit breakers going into this unit. Then we have this button to power unit on or off, and we have control here. So this is touch screen. We can select any of these buttons and see some information about what's happening with the unit, and we have these buttons to update values and navigate through the menu. On the right side of this unit we have these latches where we can open this door, and we have this big grill where all air coming out from this unit when it's cooling down. Inside we can see 3 massive radiators, first, second and third one, and because they're really massive, this unit is not engaging fan too often in my case. My panel's pushing about 3 kilowatts, 3.5 kilowatts in a peak, and then it's supplying back to the grid about maybe 4-5 kilowatts from a battery and from solar panels, and it's still not engaging these fans too often. And on the bottom of this unit we can see many inputs for all kind of wires for the battery, then from solar panels, from a grid load, generator, and etc. Now if we open these latches, so right here inside what we have, 2 wires going from the battery, positive and negative, then 2 wires going from solar panels, positive and negative. This unit has 2 MPPT charge controllers, first and second. Then this wire is going from my electrical panel where CT sensors installed. Having these CT sensors allowing me to make this unit work in the grid 0 mode. So that means right now my panels are supplying 1 kilowatt of energy, and I'm not taking any energy from the grid. So this solar panel supplying my house needs, which is right now 600 watts, and also it's charging the battery. So then right here we have grid input. This unit installed in United States where we have split phase system. So that means from a grid I have 3 wires going into the house. Neutral, leg 1 and leg 2. Between neutral and leg 1 or leg 2 we have 120 volts, and between leg 1 and leg 2 240 volts. Then here's a ground line from electrical panel, and this is going into Sol-Ark unit. So right here is additional inputs, first for the battery temperature sensor, then these two inputs for generator start and keep this going. Then we have emergency stop button, we can connect this right here. Then two ports to parallel this unit to make Sol-Ark work with other inverters, with other Sol-Ark inverters in parallel. And then we have this ModBus connection and the battery CanBus connection. So this port is great to communicate with the battery. Sol-Ark supporting multiple battery manufacturers, lithium battery manufacturers, where it could communicate with the BMS. So basically you will connect battery BMS through this port, and BMS could tell inverter when to stop charge your battery and when to stop discharge your battery. So you don't need any relays or any MOSFETs in your BMS. It can just simply monitor cell voltage and pack voltage and just tell inverter when to stop charging and stop discharging your battery. If you have custom built lithium battery, as of today you can use only one BMS that could communicate with a Sol-Ark unit. It's Orion Junior 2 BMS. I did send email to Sol-Ark and they provided communication protocol with details how to communicate with the inverter. And now I'm reaching out Batterium BMS, and I hope that these two companies can work together to make Batterium BMS to work with Sol-Ark. I guess it's going to be a great addition to two companies, and all DIYers will really appreciate this. And now let's jump to the menu and see what settings do we have in this inverter. Okay, so let's start from the top. We have 4 LEDs right here. DC, when it's green, that means solar panels pushing power into inverter. AC means that generator or grid power is available at inverter right now. Normal, that inverter is operating, and alarm is going to be red if we do have any alarms. Then on the bottom we have 4 buttons to control menus, and then right here we have four icons. We can push almost every icon, and for example, if I push first one, we can see our graph for solar panels power production. We can switch to months, day, and etc. Then if we press on the grid icon, we can see how many kilowatts were pushed back to the grid. I have a grid tie solar system as well, so I'm pushing power back to grid. Then this bulb icon we cannot press, it's not pressable, no information here. And if we press on a battery icon, we can see individual information about voltages. So we can see how many watts solar panels pushing right now. Right now it's 9 p.m. so we don't have any power available. Then we have grid power. So right now we're getting from a grid 13 watts. And right here we can see how many watts inverter supplying to each individual leg. So to the leg 1 we're supplying 177 watts, and to second leg we're supplying 190 watts. Then inverter, here's how many watts inverter producing, how many amps pushing into each leg. Then I didn't find any information about this UPS LD. Then on the battery we can see how many watts were taken from a battery, what is the voltage of battery, and how many amps we are getting from a battery, and as well battery temperature. Right now I don't have temperature sensor connected, so I guess it's default to 25 Celsius. And then we have temperature for unit itself. On the DC side we are at 57 Celsius, and on the AC side we are at 40.6 Celsius. Then on the top we have this gear icon, and by pressing this icon we enter into menu, and in menu we have 4 buttons for basic battery and grid setup, and we have system alarms. Let's start with system alarms. We can see what kind of alarm occurred at what time, and then we have all these setups. Let's start with the basic setup. On the first screen we see like how much is the brightness of the screen, if we want to beep when we press buttons or not, and how many seconds we want till screen will auto dim. Time is just standard settings for the time. Then in advanced settings, what we see here, we can enable Sol-Ark fault on. We'll try to detect if any arc happening on in the solar panels, in the wire somewhere. We can clear this fault if it's gonna occur. Then we have two interesting settings: generator peak shaving and grid peak shaving. So what is that? If we have generator connected to Sol-Ark and for example, our generator can supply only 4 kilowatts, then we can install CT sensors on a generator wires and enable this checkbox, and Sol-Ark will make sure that it's not drawing more than 4 kilowatts from generator, so it's not going to overload this. Then we have grid peak shaving, same from a grid. We're not going to draw more than a set amount from a grid if needed. So then next settings is after detect home limits sensors. So when you enable, when you're going to press on this, it will read information from sensors. It works pretty great. I installed sensors, just press this button once and it detected sensors, and it's just working. I don't need to reverse my sensors or do some actions with them. CT ratio, I'm not sure what's that one. Factory reset, I think it's pretty self-explanatory here. And then last parameter here is a parallel, so we can set up multiple units to work together. So it could be master or slave unit, and then like all this kind of information. So then let's move to the next one, to the battery setup. Right here we can set battery capacity, and then maximum amperage charge. So this is how many amps we're going to push to the battery at any time at all. So then battery maximum discharge. Next parameter is temperature coefficient per manual, per instruction. This is applicable for lead acid batteries. So then on the right screen we can select if we want to use voltage for a battery, display as a voltage or percentage. So for example, if I select percentage, press OK, go back, then we will see that my battery right now is just 16%. So then if we don't have battery connected, we need to select no battery, otherwise unit will beep. Then if we have battery or BMS which is supported by Sol-Ark, we can select this checkbox and select, as I understand, profile. Like each battery manufacturer will have own profile. And then activate battery. In our case we have battery connected, so we just activated this one. So right here on the charge screen we have two checkboxes. If we want to charge our battery using generator or using grid power, if we select this, we can select what is the start voltage or what is the start percentage of the battery, like when we want to start charging our battery. And then we have a selection how many amps we want to push into the battery. We can select generator and grid charging at the same time. So then on the right side we have settings for the battery, what is the float voltage, what is the absorption voltage, and equalization. So if in my case I'm running lithium batteries, I don't want to equalize, so I set 0 hours, and in this case it would never start equalization. Now if we go to discharge, right here we have so this is a little bit confusing settings for me, but it took me a little bit time to understand them. But we have right here we have shutdown, so basically when our inverter will stop using battery at 49 volts. So then we have next setting, we have low battery, 49.5 volts. So this is settings when inverter will start show battery in yellow. So right here we have this yellow icon, so that means we're at low voltage. Then we have restart. So basically if we hit this 49 volts, it will stop using battery, and it will resume battery usage when we are at 50 volts. Battery empty, this is, as I understand, to calculate state of charge for our battery. Resistance is standard 25 ohms for lithium batteries. Battery charge efficiency, I'm not sure what's that one, and I didn't find any mention about these settings. In the smart load, here's a few really interesting items. First is use generator input as load output. If we activate this, we're activating smart load, and what it does, when our battery will reach 54 volts, and we can configure at how many volts we will activate this, so this is configurable. As soon as battery at 54 volts, it will send excess power to generator input breaker. So we can connect our AC conditioning or water heater to this output and basically use excess of the energy. So then next item for AC coupled input. If you have system with micro inverters installed, you can connect this system to Sol-Ark and it's going to work together. Zero export, I didn't find any information about this one settings, so I'm not sure what is on grid always on and zero export. So I didn't find any information in the instruction there. In the grid setup, many interesting items here. First tab is a limiter. What we have here, we have 3 different modes: grid cell, limiter, limited power to home, and limited power to load. First is a grid cell selected, so that means inverter will send power back to the grid, and it's gonna send maximum 400 watts. Next one is limited power to home, so that means inverter will sense how much power my house consuming right now and will push same amount of energy back to electrical panel. So if we go back, here is an example of this mode. Right now my house consuming 24 watts and I'm getting this energy from a battery. I'm not taking any power from a grid. So if I turn any electrical appliances, it will try to get all of this power from a battery. If battery is not enough, only then it's going to take power from a grid. Then we have limited power to load. If we select this setting, for example, so then power is only going to be sent to the load. It's most right circuit breaker in a Sol-Ark unit. And the last item is time of use setup. So basically, when we activate this mode, we can select time frame and how much power we want to use from a battery to satisfy this selection. So for example, on this table, what we have at 1 AM, my inverter will take from a battery maximum 2.5 kilowatts, and the minimum battery voltage is going to be 49.5 volts. As soon as battery voltage will reach this value, it will stop taking any power from a battery. So it's limiting how many watts we're getting from a battery and what is the battery voltage. And if we want to charge battery, we can select this checkbox, or if we want to backfeed to the grid, we can select this cell checkbox. So at 8 AM we're changing values, so we're gonna get maximum 2 kilowatts from a battery, and the battery voltage should be 50.5 volts. And at 8 AM we want to start selling back to the grid. So when solar power available from panels, from solar panels, only then I want to backfeed to the grid. So then at 9 AM my maximum consumption from a battery is going to be 3.5 kilowatts, and here's the voltage, so etc. Then from 4 to 9 PM, this is time when kilowatts from my electrical company is most expensive. So right here I'm setting that I want to take from a battery 4 kilowatts, and I'm okay to discharge battery up to 49 volts. So I'm charging to 51.5 just to have just to satisfy this time frame. So this is really great setup right here. And the first time it was like this table confusing to me, but I hope I did explain clearly what all of these settings means. Then we can go to setup and we can select days of the week. For example, if your company not charging you higher amount for kilowatts on Saturday and Sundays, you can unselect this if you want. So then next one is a cell control. We can select what standard we want to use. Then we have these items, grid reconnect time, how many minutes we want Sol-Ark to wait till it's going to reconnect. Then we have we can connect generator to grid input if we don't have any grid power available, so we can use grid input as a generator input. Then this settings, zero export power, when this is in a mode limited power to home, it's going to always draw from a grid 20 watts. We can update this value, but basically I always want to grid 20 watts to make sure I'm not backfeeding at night, for example. And I didn't find information where is this one, battery first or load first. So then on a grid input we can select where is our grid frequency. Then we can select what is our grid type. For example, European style, we can do 220 volts single phase, or we can do US or Mexico split phase system, or we can do 3-phase 120 to 208. Then we have these settings to protect our grid. If power going out of this range, it will shut down. Right here I didn't dig into these settings, I didn't touch this yet, so I will skip this for now. And the last one, I also didn't touch this as well. So I think I did cover most of the information. If you do have any questions, maybe I will leave link for manual for Sol-Ark, but it took me like some time to go through this manual and read information. Okay, so I think that's all about menu overview. Alright, and now let's review application. On the right bottom corner you can see this PV Pro app, and when we open this app, here's the default view for this one. It supports multiple inverters. You can add many inverters here. So here's why on the top you can see that we have one online inverter right now. We don't have any warnings or faults, and the total amount of inverters is one right here. Then if we press on our plant, we're gonna go to details, and we can see all information related to power production, power consumption from inverter. On the top corner we can see how many watts panels pushing right now. We can do pull to refresh to get fresh information. I'm not sure what is the refresh rate, but it looks like it's not every second, not even every 10 seconds. So information like a little bit delayed here. Then on the next views we have this information, how many kilowatt hours were produced today, in a month, in a year, and total. Then we have this nice power flow where we can see power flowing from inverter or out from the inverter. Then we can see generation purpose where detailed information, how many watts we spent to charge battery, to consumption, or how many watts we got from a grid system. So then we have this nice chart where we can see details. We can zoom in or zoom out, scale in, scale out, to see like every hour what was happening with production. Then we have weather information, local weather information, and the investment return rate, which is, I think I put price for kilowatt hours from my energy company, and now it's calculating this information. So then we can go at the bottom on equipment tab, and if we press on this inverter, we can see some more details from inverter. Right here, information about legs, leg 1 and leg 2 for my grid power. Then on these charts we can see how well balanced our legs, leg 1 and leg 2, and how many amps we were getting, pushing back or getting from the grid. So then if we go here, we can see power inverter production, how many watts it was producing at particular time. We can as well zoom in or zoom out. Then if we press on the input, Right here we can see information about PV input, so we can see that we're using only first MPPT charge controller, and right now it's pushing 2.7 kilowatts. Then we have chart where we can see volt amperage from solar panels, or we can switch to voltage from solar panels. Then if we press on the battery, we can see status of the battery. Right now it's 15% charged. We can see that we are pushing into the battery 1.2 kilowatts, and today we charged battery up, we pushed into the battery 1.6 kilowatt hours, and get from a battery 1.1 kilowatt hours. Also we can see like this information for months, year, and the total life. Here's a chart for power, how many watts we are pushing into battery or getting from a battery. We can switch to state of charge to see percentage, voltage as well. Here's the current information. My temperature sensor is not connected, so it's stable 25 Celsius. Then capacity. This inverter, in the settings we can set battery capacity, but additionally it's going to after calculate your battery capacity. Because I'm running battery without BMS, I have this narrowed down range, so it looks like I'm just getting 315 amp hours from my battery right now. Then we can see this charge and discharge graph for daily information. We can see how many watts we charged and how many kilowatt hours we discharged our battery. If we go to the grid, we can see some additional charts here. We can see how many watts we got from a grid or we pushed back to the grid. On a load, right here is a load for inverter, how many kilowatts it were producing. Then we can go to events, where we will see profile for installer. In this case it's myself, and here's going to be contact information for this installer and event information. So if any event is going to happen, you can just call installer and provide information about event. On a custom graph right here, we can click on parameters selection and select whatever items we want to see in this chart. So here's updated chart. It's a nice chart, customizable. The only problem is if you go back to main screen, it's too hard to access this chart. So you have to go to your plant, then go to equipment, then click on inverter, then go to custom, and then you're accessing this chart. It would be great if we could move this to the main screen. And the last part is details. Here is just like some information about like device temperature, what was device temperature at particular time, and as well address of installation and like some additional information. If we press on equipment on gateway, here's information about Wi-Fi plug, and the last piece of application, not last, here's additional information events. So in the last 3 days I had one fault event, which is a DC low voltage. We can click on this event. We'll go to profile screen, where we can just call installer and say, hey, I have this event, what do I do? And if we go back to the home screen, right here, if we press me, you have some selections here. If you press on the tools, here's where Wi-Fi configuration or local parameters settings for application or Wi-Fi diagnostics, which is not supported. I haven't dig much into these tools. Then for language selection, looks like we have Chinese and English. Then on a personalization, we have temperature selection. We can do Celsius or Fahrenheit. Then we can enable or disable notifications. We can go to and read manual, and on about us, here's information about company. Looks like Sol-Ark it didn't do this application. They outsourcing this online tracking to some other company. And here's a quick overview of this application. And in the last part, let's talk about pros and cons for this unit. I made few notes for myself, and let's start with the cons. So first one, I found that menu in this item a little bit buggy. If we go, for example, to grid setup, and when we have this time frame, I can override the hours. For example, this time frame is going to be from 1 a.m. to 11 a.m., but next time frame is from 11 a.m. to 9 a.m., so it doesn't make sense. So I'm not sure how this is going to work together. In my opinion, this time should not be greater than next time. So this is first, and it's easy to fix in a update, so it's a minor one. So next item is battery settings. So if we go to battery setup to discharge tab, we see these voltages right here: shutdown, low battery, restart, and battery empty voltage. And this is confusing for me. For example, at low battery in instruction, they saying this settings is used to just to highlight this icon in yellow when we're reaching this voltage. But if I go to settings to grid setup and I want to lower my battery voltage, I cannot. So this is minimum value I can set is a low battery, and how all of this works together is just a little bit confusing for me. I read manual few times. I even watched Sol-Ark webinars, but it's still I'm still learning how to do proper setup right here. So next item is instruction or manual for this unit. As you can see, they're providing like pretty detailed instruction for this unit with installation and menu explanation. But for example, on this screen, on a discharge screen, we see this checkbox BMS error stop. And if we read discharge graph right here, I don't see any mention about this checkbox. There are many other items that I cannot find in instruction. But again, it would be nice if instruction would have all of these items listed there. Next item is screen size. So this is pretty tiny screen. So it's okay, you can still read all of your information and navigate through menu. But in my opinion, it would be much better if this screen is going to be at least twice bigger. Next item is this Wi-Fi plug. When I did connect this Wi-Fi plug to internet, and it was a really confusing part, because if you're gonna go through instruction, it's just if you're gonna scan this code on iPhone, it's not gonna find this app. So this part a little bit confusing, and when you connect this device to internet, for me it took about 20 hours when it got online. And in a few days, I had a I have internet connection dropped, and it also took about 24 hours till this device reconnected to the internet. Last item for me is after updates. So when I installed this unit, I called customer support for Sol-Ark, and they pushed update over internet to this device, which is great to have always new firmware with new options, but I would like to have option to disable after updates, because usually when I'm applying updates to any electronics, I'm reading release notes, and I want to know what is getting new to this unit. As of today, I don't have any control to disable after updates. So it looks like Sol-Ark at any time can push new update to this unit, and I wouldn't even know that this has happened. When Sol-Ark updated, I don't have any indication right here. I think maybe this checkbox went green, but I'm not sure. So I don't have any control to after updates, which is, in my opinion, not a great thing. Okay, so that's all items in the cons section that I found for this unit. All of them, in my opinion, minor, that could be fixed without updating hardware, of course, except screen. But again, this screen is totally usable. It's just like maybe my wish to have this a little bit bigger. Now let's jump in the pros section. So first item, which is in the pros section, is a quality. Overall, this inverter, in my opinion, it's a great quality. Like if you touch this metal, it's like thick metal, and this latching mechanism, like all of this in this unit, it's like feels really high quality of materials. Then second great option is functionality and settings for this inverter. You can do many items, which is sometimes you need to install multiple units like charge controllers, relays to control like different functionality. For example, time of use, it's a great item. Like if you want to supply power at particular hours to your grid, or don't use any power from a grid. Then peak shaving, when you can limit how many amps to draw from a grid or from generator. Or for example, AC coupling, so you can connect this inverter to micro inverters and it's going to work together. So all of this is great to have in just one unit. Next great item in my opinion is communication with BMS. If you use custom built battery like mine, you have two options for BMS. First is a MOSFET option, and second is a BMS that control charge and discharge using relay. If you make your BMS to work with a Sol-Ark using this ModBus protocol, that means you don't need MOSFETs or relays anymore. BMS could just send a signal to Sol-Ark and it will stop charge or discharge. It's a great item to have, and I think it's just a matter of time when Sol-Ark will support more and more different BMSs. And the last item in the pros section is technical support. So I called customer support a few times, and every time I was able to speak to a real person, and the wait time is usually it's pretty quick when you got to the real person, and they always able to explain me like clearly what settings do I miss or any questions I had, which is a great option to speak with the customer support, especially with complicated inverters when it has a lot of settings like this unit. Okay guys, I think that's it about reviewing this unit. If I did miss any items or you wanna see more information, please let me know. And as always, thank you for watching and see you later.